All right, today we're looking at something different. So look at this sheet that I gave you. This is online in Google Classroom under materials. You can get this. People here, I gave them a copy of it, but you can always get one there. We're going to be looking at point slope form. Today you're going to be given a point and a slope, and you're going to need to change or find using point slope form to find slope intercept form. Slope intercept form is the form we use to graph. Because what we do is we have the y-intercept, which I labeled b equals the y-intercept, and m is the slope. And we talked about that already. It's the same thing here. M is the slope. But when we go to graph, we put a dot at the y-intercept, and then from the y-intercept, we use the slope to find our second dot, and then eventually our third dot, if we can get it graphed on a small graph. Sometimes you can only put 2 points on it. Sometimes you can put multiple points on it. But we're using this form. Why? Because do you see the ones? Now we're talking about the subscripts. Those ones are your first point. You're given 1 point. That's the point, the 1 point. So that's what we're going to change today. We're going to do the opposite of the y and the opposite of the x. And I'm also giving you the slope this time. So what we'll be left with is a y and an x. And we're going to get it so that we have the y equals mx plus b, so whatever the slope is in front, and then a number for the y-intercept. Confused? Don't worry about it. We'll get there. So here is number 1. We are given the point, and we're given the slope as -2. So what we're going to do is we have y, and then what we're going to replace is this one, which is the opposite of y. Well, I labeled it for you. There's 4. Well, there's nothing in front of the 4, so that means it's positive 4. So we're going to do -4. Then we're going to replace the slope. I gave you slope. That's what m equals. M equals slope. Okay? So the slope is just -2. And I can make these that you don't change in black. You don't change your first x. That's just there. Then what we're going to find is this part here. And it's the opposite of x. Well, I go up here. I already used the 4 as y. That means 1 is x. But it's the opposite, or change the x. That 1, believe it or not, because there's nothing in front of it, has a plus. So we're going to change it to a -1. Now, we've looked at this before. We have an equation now. We're going to follow our 5 steps. We are going to distribute. We're going to combine like terms, all that good stuff. Well, we have this problem now. So I have parentheses. That means that I'm going to distribute. And you're going to do this each and every time. So -2 times x is -2x, because there's a 1 in front. -2 times 1 is -2, and we have an x. -2 times -1 is +2. That's all we can do. There are no other parentheses. We cannot distribute anywhere else. If we look at our slope-intercept form, what do we notice about the left side? What does the left side have, guys? Just a y. Do we have just a y over here? No. So we need to get rid of that -4. We cannot combine like terms here. There is no extra x, there is no extra y, so we're not going to do that step for the extra variable. But we do have something added or subtracted because we're solving just for that y. We're not solving for x, we're solving for y. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and, since it's -4, I'm going to add 4 to both sides, and I need to make sure, guys, -4 plus 4 is gone. I'm left with y equals, I cannot add the 4 to the x because 4 does not have an x, -2 does have an x, but this +2 right here does not have it, so those are the like terms that we're going to add together. The -2x doesn't change. So 2 plus 4 is 6. Now, do we see it? Here's our slope-intercept form. That -2 is our slope. That B is our y-intercept. So we would put a dot on the y-axis at 6, and this would be -2 over 1, and I would go down 2 spaces and then overwrite 1 space, and I would put another dot. And you could do that in reverse or keep going. But we'll get to graphing later. So what am I going to do? Opposite on this y, opposite on this x, and our slope goes right there. We're going to distribute, and then we're going to get rid of what is added or subtracted. 2 steps. That's it. Same steps. Distribute, add, subtract. So let's go through that again. And you should be familiar with this form. That's the reason why I taught you how to find slope with it. So what are we looking for? We're going to look for this y, that x, and slope. Well, we're not going to change this y. But what is the opposite of y? This is y right here. What's the opposite of 4? -4. That's what we changed. What is slope here? -5/8. We leave the x, because we're not changing that. Parentheses, we didn't change that, we didn't change. But we are changing that x first point, or x only point that we have. So this is -4. We want the opposite of -4. What's the opposite of -4? +4. Very good. All right, at that point, now we have an equation and we can solve it, and we're going to solve it for the y. But first, we need to get rid of anything that can be distributed. That's just a given. So the nice thing is, 1 times anything is just what? It's not 1, it's itself. So -5 over 8 times 1 is just -5 over 8x. You don't have to do anything. Don't take your calculator, multiply by 1. Some of your calculators at home will change it to a decimal. We don't want that. Now, your calculator's here. I can show you how to do this. And maybe you might have one of these at home. Let's see if I can get this so it's not glaring. All right. You're going to use your fraction button, which is right here. Some of you might have an ABC button on some of your calculators. So what you're going to do is I'm going to make it negative. See if we can get you to see it. -5. And hit this ABC fraction button. And I'm going to put 8. Okay. And then I have to move it over. And then it's going to be, so it's -5 over 8 times 4. So I will hit the multiplication and 4 and equals. And I get -5 over 2. So -5 over 2. I'm going to do that again for you so that you understand how to use it, especially you guys sitting here with the calculators. You can hit the fraction button first, but I find it easier to hit -5. And then I hit that fraction button, and it automatically takes me to the bottom. I hit 8, and I'm going to use my cursor key, this big circle right here, to move it over so that's off the bottom. Then I hit my multiplication. Then I hit, what is it multiplied by 4? And you can see here, it's multiplied by 4. Then I hit 4, and then equals, and this calculator lovingly keeps it as an improper fraction. So there you go. I bring everything else down because I didn't touch that. Now, same thing. I have everything. I can't distribute. I can't combine. I mean, I distributed. I can't combine like terms. No extra variable. It's the add subtract part. That 4. So I distribute, and then I get rid of that number that's next to the y. So since this is -4, I'm going to add 4. But I don't add 4 to the x part. I add it to the constant part. This is where you're going to have some calculator play once again. By the way, -4 plus 4 is gone. We're left with y equals. This is going to remain the same. Slope is slope is slope. We have to have the same slope here. All right, so you're going to take your calculator again. I'm trying to get it. There we go. So we want that -5, hit your fraction button. -5/2, and then you're going to have to curse it over. You're going to hit +4, so +4, and then equals, and this calculator is going to do all that stuff for you, and there you go. You can see it, 3/2. So it's +3/2. Use the wrong marker there. That's okay. So that's our answer. This one would be difficult to graph, and this is the reason why we try to find it mathematically, because you can't. That's almost impossible to graph. That's 1.5, which is better to graph, but then you're going half spaces. So we're gonna move on. I'm only gonna do 4 today since these take a little longer. I don't want our video to be overly long. So once again, I'm finding this part, this, and this. I need to substitute those. Well, I'm given the y. Now, it's the opposite of y. That's kind of like -1 times y. Well, -1 times 5 is +5. I just change it. That's what that means. Anytime you multiply by -1, it becomes its opposite. So since it's -5, it's going to be +5. I'm given the slope. That's an easy one. And I'm looking for the x. Well, it's -5, so the opposite of that is +5, +5. Same 2 steps. Distribute. Well, 5/4 times x is just, or 4/5 times x is 4/5 x. 4/5 times 5, and I can tell you this, and I just because I know fractions, it's 4. And why is that? If I do that in my head and I'm multiplying it, I know that 5 is 5/1. Well, you cross cancel, right? Because 5's going to each other, and I'm left with 4/1, which is just 4. Or use your calculator. I'm going to do the 4, the fraction key, the 5, make sure I cursor over, and I'm going to multiply by 5. It equals, and there you go, there's your 4. No, it's kind of hard to see with the glare. There we go. That's perfect. Not right now, not during this, but you can go right afterward. Okay, so we still have the y plus 5. So what is our steps again? We're just going to distribute, and then we're going to add subtract. Well, there we go. This is plus 5, so we're going to subtract 5, and we have to do it with the constant, which is here. Okay? Plus 5 minus 5 is gone. We're left with the y equals. Our slope is going to remain the same. Don't change your slope. 4/5 is 4/5 slope. That's what's in front. And then this is an easy one. 4 minus 5 is -1. Hopefully I didn't go too far here. I can still use the other side. If you don't have that here, I can give it to you. Once again, these are the parts we're finding. The y stays, and then the opposite of y, well, here's y, so the opposite is +3. -3 is +3. Our slope is -7. We keep that first x. We're finding the point. That's what the 1 stands for. The 1 point we have. This is our x, so that's going to be +4. The opposite of it. All right. And we have an equation. There's really only 2 steps in this equation. We have to do the distribute. Guys, there's a 1 in front of it, so it's just -7 times x is -7x. That's the easy one. This one's an easy one for your calculator. -7 times 4. Whoops, should be -28. It's -28, guys. Sorry. And bring down that y plus 3 and the equal sign. And our last step that we do, because there's no extra variable, but we do have the add subtract. That's +3, so we're going to subtract 3, and we subtract it from that part, from its like term. So our like terms here cancel off, they disappear, they actually become 0. We're going to keep that slope part, and negative 28 minus 3 is negative 31. And that we changed from point slope to slope intercept form. And we could graph this if we had a big enough graph. Okay? Guys, go back over it. You're going to notice it's the same stuff. I distributed, I added, subtracted. I distributed, I added, subtracted. And that gets me to this. The important part is make sure that you change. And if you look, that 4 became a negative 4. That 4 became a positive 4. You're just changing their sign because of that times negative 1 that minus represents. Keep your slope, and you should be able to get there. If you have any questions, email me and we'll figure out a Google Meet time, or you can come in on at 1:50 and we can go over it. All right, have a great day.